infiltrated or not.
Okay.
Because we expose in our ranks who is who. And then when somebody is acting different than who they profess to be, they're not us.
Mm-hmm.
They invader and they're an infiltrator. Right. But you have to know the MO, the modus operandi of the ones who's doing the infiltrating, what they're here for, who sent them. Right. So once you understand that, then you say, well, what strategies is common for these people? What do they use to win in their wars? And this is what they will be using against us. Their greatest tool is called deception.
Right.
False narratives and misleading dead ends. So when Noble Drew Ali said get a good Moorish education, he didn't mean just stop with the pamphlets. The pamphlets was just some codes. It's all data codes. Right? It's certain stuff he say in the pamphlets that lead you to a broader spectrum of research if you know what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Noble Drew Ali was native over here. But he had to find out what was going on the land.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what's going on, there's no way to fight for freedom if you don't know what's really going on versus what it looked like on the surface.
Right.
I mean, you have to dig in places that other people are not going to look. Right. He found himself after years of traveling the sea trying to find stuff out, settling in New Jersey. This is where he encountered the Moorish Zionist temple.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when he found out the conjure that they was maintaining was the 200 years George Washington conjure, he said the only way out of this, the chiefs need to know what's going on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So he had to put the Masonic secrets in the public domain. And this is why you see a lot of sensationalism in our art, because that's how we express an idea. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but a word is just a word.
Right.
Right. So we can tell more through art and artistic expression in one sentence than we could in a whole book.
Yep.
Here at the beginning, but I told Sister Freedom, I say, I'm a Pan-Africanist too.
Really?
But from my understanding of Garvey's teaching, we were supposed to form a world's confraternity.
Right.
And from that confraternity, they're going to tell us where we from. And in that confraternity is where we come together to fight the common enemy and the purveyors of this doctrine called white supremacy. I used to get told a lot, ain't nobody write no white supremacy. Yes, they did. It's a Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike.
Okay.
This is the operating manual of white supremacy.
Okay.
The control manual that tell them what they enforcing is called the Protocols of Zion. I didn't write it. It's on paper. And if you analyze it with the reality you live in, you'll see it all playing out in front of you. They told us what they was doing. Then they did it. And then they challenged us at the end to come in and undo what they did. And that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so we live in what's called a free will universe.
Okay.
And when two free will people encounter each other, the only way one can override the other one's will is by overt force or by deception. So they use the law of the jungle first. Yes. That's the warfare. But they still have to tell us what they're doing, but they can deny it.
Right.
So the so-called leak is fulfilling that fact that they have to tell us what they're doing to us before they doing it and while they doing it, because at any time we become aware of what they doing, we can stop it. We don't have to consent any longer. We can disagree. We can separate. But as long as we going along to get along, they're using our God power to their advantage. You hear me speak on raising the matriarchy a lot.
Oh,
but
yeah, exactly.
The reason why I don't speak on the patriarchs, because I don't have to tell a man when he see a woman in her feminine self, he gonna already boss up. He know that he had to be his best self if he wants that one. Right? He can the girl of your dreams, right? The girl of your dreams. When you see her in your physical form, because she didn't fulfill her divinity as the earth angel. You don't want to be at your lowest when you encounter that, because you don't feel like you would have a chance to capture the girl of your dreams. So you're going to have to be a man. The kind of man that every woman wants is the man that every woman wants.
Woo! So let me interject. Let me ask you this.
I don't have to focus on the brothers. When these women start being feminine again, and they start loving on each other again, we gonna say, hey man, y'all, I ain't going in there with my pants sagging down, my ass hanging out, because them sisters right there, they ain't regular. But one of the things that we gotta understand about the matriarchy is the best man for the job is the man the matriarch pick every time. The best man for the job. She not gonna pick the second best, because why would she do that? There's no woman out there, you ask, hey, I'm the third best person for this position. You think I could get the job? She was like, well, who's 2 and 1?
Right, that part.
She don't want the third best, the second best. She want the best. That's just the rule of the matriarchy. And if you are a leader as a man, right? When you go on, you have to have a destination, first of all. My destination is raise the matriarchy, restore the great mother. That's where I'm going. Now, my cause of action is to restore heaven on earth by putting the great mother back on her seat. If I can be successful in alerting the people to the return of the great mother, in the restoration of the great mother back to her proper position, and the women start to heal, I'm going to be fine after that. I don't need no more. But the rest of the purpose of my life after that is work the fields with my mother, with my hands, with my sons.
She the first, so why wouldn't you want to let
my mission is to raise the matriarchy. I know that the men going to see it, because they didn't want to listen to me when I tried to tell them about it before I started teaching the sisters. This is the part you didn't know about. I was teaching the men. I only been teaching the sisters 5 years. From the day I started getting knowledge, I've been teaching the brothers. Right? So now it's time for me to do what Elijah told me. 85% of the work is with the women.
And the women bring them in.
Okay.
And then Noble Drew Ali say, we here to uplift.
Brings that.
Yeah. Noble Drew Ali say, we here to uplift fallen humanity. And who's fallen humanity? The great mother ain't on her throne. That's when humanity fell.
You're right. You're right.
So if we uplift fallen humanity, we all go back to being humane to one another. We stop allowing people to train our children and hypnotize them into believing that they're an alternate gender from what their mama produced.
Wow.
Right? This is a concerted effort of warfare used against us to influence our children. It's part of something called a gay agenda.
Yes, sir. Yes,
we first have to regain control of our community, put the great mother back on her throne, and it's automatic. We automatically start reorganizing the communities.
You know
right?
what?
I used to listen to my big mama tell my mama stuff about me in my future. Shirley, now you see this one here? He sees things. You need to pay attention when he tell you something. I used to give people the lottery number till they started exploiting the gift, making
Wow.
promises to a little kid and not keeping them. If I hit the number, I'm gonna take you shopping. They knocked the aluminum siding out the number and
don't come
forget if they never take me shopping.
Wow.
So the gift turned off. Section from exploitation.
Oh.
Okay. So first of all, we was prisoners of war. We weren't slaves. The slave narrative was told to conceal the fact that we was prisoners of war at home. Second, the Trail of Tears was a swap out of a different group of people that they brought with them as servants to replace the tribes. Those cities that's predominantly us in the South is that way on purpose, because a lot of them was villages before they were cities. And we had settlements down there as they ousted us on the Trail of Tears and continued on with the imposters to settle on the reservations. And they used the paper genocide to reclassify us in a legal system. But we really, our real legal determination is belligerent tribes, because we was the tribes that refused to sign treaties with them. Some of my ancestors was part of the tribes that did, but part of my ancestry come from what they call the outlaw tribes. The outlaw tribes is the ones like the Mississippians who would never agree to any of their terms because they would have knew they was lying, right? So they didn't never trust them to sign anything, and they wanted us to surrender land, and that's to us like selling your mama. They believe in selling their mama and their children. We don't. That's the difference in how you know them from us. They just, whitewashing history so that we would think that the pale face is the enemy, while these imposters is pretending to be us. Like we're not gonna know our people. And that's why they give us an alternate perspective of history so that we could celebrate the oppressor as if he's saved us from ourselves. He didn't save us from nothing. We was doing just fine till they came over here. We dealt with ourselves how we dealt with ourselves. Then they upset our peace. And I'm here to establish justice. That's the instinct of a matriarch. She know that her son need to see a man to be a man. Anybody born with the gender can be male, but only certain types of men is the influence that a matriarch will want around her son. So sometimes the father might have problems with drugs or alcohol or whatever, hookers, whatever his vice is, and it don't work. The wise women know to expose their son to strong, positive, driven men. And so she does that unconsciously and might see it years later, as in your case. But you following something that the matriarchs teach the women anyway. If your relationship doesn't work and you can't, for whatever reason, he might have a mental disorder. It might hurt you and the children. So you can't have them around. And the matriarchy tell the women, if you have sons, make sure that they're exposed to the type of men that you want your son to become.
Mm-hmm.
And the exposure allows him to see what his masculine side's supposed to look like. Right? But the women that's caught in the feminist agenda, they don't want their son to exhibit masculine traits. So that the patriarchs that they represent as drag queens can be the dominant male figure for the women to look at. And they all got skeletons in their closet bigger than dinosaurs.
Mm.
And so they, long as our men don't just do what the man supposed to do, it's like in my case, my mama sent me to do this work. She don't send me to do nothing this complex just to be sending me. Somebody finna get this work. My mama said we ain't come from no Africa. I don't need nobody else to tell me nothing after that. We ain't from Africa.
Hmm.
My daddy told me about his Native American grandmama, hair down to her ankles. I don't need nobody else to tell me nothing. I know what's going on. I read the culture and I read the history. And the culture don't agree with what the history is telling us.
Okay.
So I'm telling the people what the culture say. So the Carolinas is very instrumental in this entire 500-year struggle. It was the Gullah Geechee Big Mama, who was the highest matriarch on the land, called all of the tribes to war against the Spanish in Florida in the Gullah Wars.
Right.
When the Afro chiefs arrived, this is when they started calling us Seminoles. And they said that the Afro chiefs was runaway slaves. That's the Seminole narrative.
Right.
The Gullah narrative is Big Mama said all hands on deck. We got invaders at the door. Some of us went to give support against the French in Louisiana, and the rest of us, all hands was on deck, moving into Florida. That's why Florida, the finish line, right? But the call came from the Carolinas. And this is why Big Mama, Empress Redbird, had to be coming from Carolinas. Because the same place that she emerged is the same place that we got the call. And this is why they were saying that we was runaway slaves. We wasn't running away from plantations. We was running away from family settlements that they had encampments around to keep us on. And when they took Big Mama out, they took her name off Big Mama House and called it the Big House. And Slick Willie, she was married to, dressed up like the butler and put them fancy white folk in them fancy clothes and told them that they was the owner all the time. That house nigga was running the show. This what happened to us. This is why we were so adamantly against the house nigga. But see, he used to, behind the scenes, treat Miss Ann them the same way they treated us in the field. And when Miss Ann them get tired of it, they realized that he didn't actually gave them too much power, and they ousted him from the house. He ran out to the field for help. And we none the wiser. To after the fact. Then we start realizing we can't stand them house niggas. King George was solicited by the French to sponsor Georgia as a state to stop us from supporting the Gullahs, and they was put a military force in the state of Georgia to try to stop us from giving that back up. This is when we went into the Conjure Wars. This is the cause. What's special about the Gullah Geechee people, when we talk about the royal families from Africa marrying into the royal families over here before Columbus came, they a prime example of that. They a prime example of that. They knew what tribes that the people that married into the people over here was from. And then their history was changed to the slave narrative. But they was here long before that. Settled on them islands just like you talking about. A culture itself is seductive to our people because the way that they fuse their indigenous ancestry and their African ancestry is almost hypnotic to experience for us.
Right.
The only we with POWs, they call it the slave trade to try to convince us that we came from somewhere else.
Yeah,
We was prisoners of war at home.
Yes. Okay.
About
Go ahead.
I was talking about the Trail of Tears and how they pushed us out on the. That's they were saying we was Africans, but we wasn't no damn Africans. We was already here. That's just to make us not reclaim the land at the close of the age. Trick no good. And if you pay attention to what you're saying,
go ahead.
Look, what you're describing is the call back home that Mother Nature giving their kids. When we have to move for a purpose like war, right? We always going to return back to the part of the land we originate from. We have to. It's in our nature. Everybody makes a pilgrimage back home. They don't know why they going. You hear people now, girl, I'm going to Texas. I don't know why I'm going down there, but I got to go to this game. But it got to be the game in Texas. They having the car to go to Texas. They just need an excuse. Because they seeing something spiritually that they can't explain in the 3D. Nature calling them to Texas. Now they looking for a game in Texas so they can have an excuse to go. Because they don't know how to tell their friends that they just had a spiritual experience and they realize that they need to go to Texas even if it's just to spend the weekend. Dude, it's in their culture, it's in their blood. They know the African kin folks they got on the other side of the water. That's the difference between a lot of the rest of us is that we don't trace back to Africa because we was already here. And if we did, we would be able to Gullah Geechee trace back to Africa.
Right.
They can tell you when they got tribal history of interacting with Africans long before Columbus. They were doing trade and marrying in the royal families with Africans long before Columbus sailed.
Okay.
They had already had a communication and presence in communication with both sides of the water.
All right.
They want us to believe that only when the European come did we discover Africans.
All right.
Listen, they traded, Africans traded with our tribes all up and down the eastern seaboard, including the islands.
What year was this?
This was before Columbus. For thousands of years. It's nothing new. It's not new to us over here to have interaction with Africans. What's new to us is to tell us that we are Africans when most of us was already here. Right, yeah, they would be referring to the because they had seafaring tribes long before Columbus sailed. This is how the Moorish navigators knew where to come to look for a settlement.
Right.
Because it was in the log that all of the navigators of the world had at the time. This was just an off-limits land that they wasn't supposed to touch. That's why they call it God's country. The Vikings did come over here before Columbus.
So you're talking about the Norse, the Celtic, and the people like that.
They today we call them Hell's Angels because they was given the charter to roam as nomads.
Now, did they hit North America?
Yeah.
What
It's
Is
not a
that not
myth.
a myth story?
There's
Is that, hold up,
artifacts.
is that
There's
not a myth
artifacts
story?
that accompany that.
What's the artifacts? Where did
They
they hit
have
at?
they
Who they
have
hit? What,
stone. They have
Canada?
stones that they wrote on when they came. That was here before the settlers by hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Discovery Channel did a whole show on it. That's a good place to start.
Discovery?
Discovery Channel. The videos on YouTube,
And they
but
say
it was
those are
produced
all
by
myths.
Discovery Channel, Vikings in America.